Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
So Gary Polk is here with us, Strategic Wealth Advisors, and we're going to discuss long-term care planning and a lot of things that go around that. But what I want you to know, and we'll be giving you his phone number as we go, but first let's start. It's very important to know about people's backgrounds. And I'm very impressed with who Gary Polk is. He's very, very much of a community leader and an educator. And tell us what you've been doing with the Alzheimer's Association.
Okay, thank you for having me, Anita. Well, as you know, my background is I'm a financial advisor and former practicing CPA. And my specialty is long-term care planning and retirement income planning. And through experiencing what long-term care or people that need care have on families, I have become a community educator for the Alzheimer's Association. So I speak to groups and organizations about Alzheimer's disease and information that they're probably not aware of, like the fact that Alzheimer's disease and dementia actually is preventable much of the time. Whereas most people think it's just the luck of the draw and I either get it or I don't and there's not much I can do about it. But I'm here to say that that's not true. I've done I've been trained and I've done my own research, and there are ways and lifestyle changes that can reduce or even eliminate the chances of getting Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have thrown a lot of money at this. We're really hoping that that's going to happen. But it's very important, though, and I've really had a long-term care plan since 1997 because I knew that people are going to live longer. So people now who didn't do it, you're there to help them. When is it too late, or is it ever too late, Gary?
Yes, it can be too late. I would say the ideal time to look at long-term care planning would be probably anywhere between your mid-40s and ideally mid-40s and mid-60s. Although with vehicles and products today, you can even cover yourself all the way up into your low 80s. There are vehicles and products that can do that. But ideally, I would say 40s to 65 years old is the perfect time.
So you're saying there's various options how to pay for this.
Exactly.
So anyone that you meet, is that the first question you ask them after you know them a little bit? So, hey, do you have long-term care health insurance?
I wouldn't say it's the first question, but it's certainly part of the planning process.
And is it 50% of people who maybe say they don't?
Oh, no, not
less.
Much more than 50% don't.
Don't.
Less than 15% of the population owns any kind of coverage.
Okay, so why is that true? What do they have misconceptions about this? What do they say?
Well, people think that Medicare is going to pay for long-term care or Medicaid. But really, Medicare does not pay for long-term care. It can pay for 20 days of skilled care only. And Medicaid is if you've spent down all of your money and you qualify for the government Medicaid program.
And you wind up in a nursing home.
And
that's not necessary. When you have long-term health care,
you have options.
Yes, you can be at home with care. So it's really what everyone wants. They just don't understand, do they?
Exactly. Or your two other options are having protection, transferring the risk to an insurance company, which what we're talking about, or paying for it out of their own pocket or their family's pocket. And as you know, it can be rather costly.
Very much so.
And there's a high probability of needing it.
Yep. That's what you were saying, and it is true. But there's something that you have here, and I don't really know. What's the difference between old, new, long-term care insurance? I don't really know what that is.
Well, it's an article that I wrote comparing the old versus the new. Years ago, there was only what we would call traditional long-term care. Pay a premium, hope you never need it. If you don't need it, the insurance company is not refunding your money. Kind of what I would call use it or lose it. Just like medical insurance, homeowners insurance, car insurance, and that was the standard. And there's nothing wrong with that. The other issue with traditional long-term care insurance is the prices can be increased. And at older ages, it's not a pleasant thing when you're in your 60s or 70s and you get an increase in premium. But nowadays, products have been repriced, and traditional or the old kind of long-term care can be very effective. The new kind, though, is what I would refer to as asset-based long-term care. Now, the term would be hybrid long-term care, combining a life insurance contract or an annuity contract with long-term care insurance. So when you purchase that kind of vehicle, it will pay benefits whether you live, die, or quit. So what do I mean? What do I mean?
I know
You're going to ask me, what do I mean?
I know,
by
I
that?
love that, right?
And so live, meaning you live and need some form of long-term care, and you have a policy that will pay for that. Hopefully you'll never need it, and if you, or when you pass away, it would pay your beneficiary in the form of a death benefit. Thirdly, should you change your mind, and nobody does, but should you change your mind, you could actually get back all or most of your money.
Now, that sounds great. So I know people are all peaked now. They're saying, wait, I got to talk to him. Let me give you his name again. It's Gary Polk, Polk. And just write this number down. Remember, this is a Pencil Talk Radio. Ready? 954-295-7327. Again, 954-295-7327. And this sounds so interesting to people because I know that a lot of people have been told, oh, you have to go get long-term health care insurance. And what happens, they wind up somewhere and it's so expensive and nobody knows anything else. They say, no, I can't do it, right?
Right, very much.
But you're different.
Misconception. Well, misconception is it's too expensive. So that's not true. It can be designed and formulated in such a way to meet almost anybody's budget. And something is better than nothing. So as an example, the average cost of care in South Florida when you combine home care, assisted living facility, nursing care, and just group it all together and take one big average, in South Florida, that's about $6,000 a month.
Amazing.
So who's going to pay for that? The average claim is just under 4 years. If you have an Alzheimer's or dementia claim, it could last 2 or 3 times that. But 4 years on average. So if you did the math and multiplied it times $6,000 a month, you're looking at the average claim being about $300,000 in today's dollars. In 20 years, when is the time when you might need it, it'll be more than double that.
So tell me why you, of course, as you said, you CPA and all, but what you've done is you've taken a big interest in Alzheimer's. Is that because you have a family member? What has made you do this?
Just seeing clients, primarily seeing clients, what families go through. Because ANITA, it's really not about the patient. It's not about the disabled person. It's the effect it has on families. And I like to say it this way: if you or someone you know has an unexpected need for extended care without a plan of care, that can cause severe and irreversible consequences to your family financially, emotionally, and physically.
So knowing that that made a lot of sense for you to say, wow, I could do something good for my community, and I can also help people, and this is my business. So it was a really win-win-win, wasn't it? Well, I wanted to know, there's something that you wrote here. Let's go over this again. An asset-based long-term care policy. What's an asset-based long-term care policy?
Well, traditional long-term care is typically an insurance expense. Like your homeowners or medical, you pay a premium and it's an expense. With an asset-based vehicle, you have an asset. You could either pay your premiums annually or monthly, and it builds a cash value, and it has a death benefit. So there's an asset that's going to either go to your family or beneficiary. What I like to do is reposition or try to reposition an existing asset and move it, in effect, from your right pocket to your left pocket. Did you incur an expense in that situation?
No, but you added long-term health care.
You move money from one pocket to another. So that could be a money market or a CD, which in your mind is there for emergencies. But by moving it from one pocket to another, we can use leverage. So let's use $100,000 as an example. It doesn't have to be, it could be any amount of money. So $100,000, say for a 55-year-old person, and you reposition that asset, moving it from one pocket to another, that could create $400,000 to $500,000 of tax-free long-term care.
Say that again. That's a very important statement.
You can turn $100,000 into $400,000 or $500,000 immediately into tax-free long-term care benefits should you use it.
And you know how to do this, and you've done this for people.
Many times.
Wow, this is pretty good, Gary. Gary
and
Polk.
another example is,
yes.
Let's say, as we get older, our needs change. So say you had a life insurance policy, and your kids have grown, they're out of the house, certainly the estate tax laws have changed, and you have this permanent life insurance policy with a lot of cash value. We can move that cash value and do a tax-free transfer from a life insurance policy into a life long-term care insurance policy using existing dollars, move it from your right pocket, in effect, to your left, and create 3-4 times leverage for long-term care purposes.
See, that's very interesting because a lot of older adults want to give up their life insurance policy. But if they thought that they could then put it into something that would give them long-term health care, oh my goodness.
Without any out-of-pocket.
Oh my goodness.
Without any pocket expense.
That's a winning situation, isn't it?
Another great example is a lot of people, millions of people own annuities, okay? The biggest advantage of annuities is creating lifetime income. There's only so many things that can create lifetime incomes: Social Security, a true pension plan, and annuities. But statistically, only about 15% of people that own annuities ever use it for income. So what happens? They die, it gets passed on to the next generation, and it all becomes taxable. The gain becomes taxable. I call it a ticking time bomb, a ticking tax time bomb. So a better use for that, if you're not going to use it for income, is transfer it to an annuity type of long-term care plan and convert tax-deferred money into tax-free long-term care benefits.
And is this not being done typically because people haven't investigated and don't know as much as you?
Well,
Why is this not happening?
I have yet to meet with a prospect or a client, if you will, really never, that's ever even heard about these asset-based products.
Fabulous that you do this. I'm so glad you're on our show doing this. Gary Polk, Strategic Wealth Advisors, phone number. It's a free, no-obligation consultation. So you can call him as he'll set up a meeting, and I'll give you his phone number, and you can just talk to him about it, and maybe it'll be a perfect solution for you. The number is 954-295-7327. Again, 954-295-7327. We've certainly been talking about a lot of things to do with long-term health care planning, and I have to say that this is a major subject. As Gary was explaining, the costs of care has gone up. When I first got my policy, I think it was maybe it was $3,000 to go into even a nursing home, $3,000. And now, it's 10, 15 years?
You go into a really nice assisted living facility or a nursing home, it could cost $10,000 a month.
Right, so that's important that you just said that. It doesn't have to be a nursing home. Long-term health care insurance puts you into assisted living, too. Well,
that's one of the misconceptions is long-term care is nursing home insurance. There's nothing farther from the truth. I like to call it anti-nursing home insurance.
Right.
Because where do people want to age?
Right, at home, actually, or in a very nice, like hotel-like setting.
Exactly. So, yes, it will cover a nursing home, but you want care and assistance at home, where your family can oversee it, but they need assistance with the heavy lifting.
And this pays then for the home health aides. That's what long-term health care insurance is, isn't it?
It pays for the home health care aid, that's right. Assisted living facility, should you need it. Think of it as a bucket of money. So if you transfer that $100,000, as an example, and you create $400,000 of a bucket of money, it can be used. You're drawing money out monthly, say $6,000 a month, or whatever the amount is. If you then need to go into a assisted living facility, you could then use it for assisted living. If your condition gets worse and you need to go into a nursing home, then you have whatever is left in that bucket of money.
Well, I just have to say that I have you here because I wanted to learn so much more about it, because people ask me, and now I can refer them to you. It's, if you haven't heard about these things, why don't you just give him a call? And you may even, now I'm going to ask you a question. What if someone already has long-term health care, but it's not a very good policy? Can you do something with that also?
I would certainly review it. There's no charge to do that. Usually, if they're years older, 5, 10 years older, it's usually not beneficial to replace it.
But maybe if they have other assets, you can then give them some extra, right? Add.
That's right. A point I want to make here is it's not about insurance. This is not really about insurance. It's about the need for having a plan. It's all about having a plan. I mean, insurance is just an option, because if you don't have insurance, you have to look at your assets. Do you have an income that will pay the $6,000 as an example? Your pension money, Social Security. But then again, do you want to use your pension and Social Security money to pay for your care? That's not what it was designed for. It was designed to pay for retirement. Or do you have enough assets that you could liquidate a stock portfolio and possibly pay tax at the wrong time, or if the market is down? But do you have assets that can pay for long-term care? You have to think about it, because the probability is for everybody, the probability is about 1 out of 2 people will need some form of long-term care.
Just ask me, I know.
And by the time you reach 65, the numbers are about 7 out of 10.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because when you first started with the program, you were talking about people in their 40s and 50s and 60s. It's so much less at that cost. And I know we have 2 people watching. I know who these people are, and they're young. They're in their 50s. I know who them. It's Chuck Montgomery and Scott Norwood. They're watching, and I have to tell you right now, if you got it when you're 40, 50, even 60, there's no comparison if you tried to get it later. That's when it really hurts you.
Two factors. With this asset-based type of plan, everything is guaranteed. The premium is guaranteed. It can never go up in price.
Good, we never talked about
this. The benefit is guaranteed. It can never be changed. The cash value is guaranteed. And that's one of the reasons why people don't buy long-term care, is because they perceive to have price increases, because their friends have had price increases. You can lock in everything, completely guaranteed, every aspect of a policy.
Well, that's wonderful news. I mean, I'm just going to repeat your name, your phone number. I think you should try it. Free, no obligation consultation. And he's very much of a gentleman. There's no high pressure. I know Gary Polk for many, many years. It's Gary Polk, P-O-L-K. His phone number is 954-295-7327. He doesn't know what high pressure even means. No, that's not how you are.
No.
And so you have a nice smile.
I'm more of an educator than a salesperson.
It is.
And I put on presentations. I put on workshops about long-term care planning, as well as representing the Alzheimer's Association as a volunteer, community educator. So if any of your listeners are out there and they know of an organization that would like a speaker to come into a temple, a church, an organization to speak about Alzheimer's and talk about, the presentation I do, one of them, my favorite, is called Healthy Living for Your Brain and Body, Tips from the Latest Research.
Oh. Tell us more about that.
Well, it talks about, lifestyle changes that can greatly reduce your chance of getting Alzheimer's or dementia. And people are very surprised that, you can avoid it by things such as, I know this program is not about Alzheimer's, but diet and exercise, sleep and stress reduction are ways of reducing your chances of getting that horrible disease.
Right, and you said something also about, of course, they have been making great inroads in Alzheimer's, and I know that. But, it still worries everybody, and we have to make sure that people realize that there are programs that you've become a specialist in this. You seem like, I don't mean that you're a doctor, but
Right.
You've been really attending a lot of these seminars, right?
I've listened to documentaries and spent a lot of time listening to top neurologists around the country and PhDs, specializing in brain health. And I wasn't aware of this 6 months ago. And people are kind of astounded the fact that you can avoid getting Alzheimer's disease,
Yeah.
which is a
Well,
major thing.
Well, we know, of course, about not eating certain foods and about sleeping and all. And they are doing a lot of good about this. In fact, we just had someone on from the Volin Center, and they have a whole daycare where people go there, and they're really, all the activities and everything that you do will definitely work with people who have Alzheimer's or even the beginning of Alzheimer's. And that's really, I think, what you're saying, that there's so much money now is pouring into this.
And a major House Representatives approval of, I forget the number, $250 million or $300 million was just approved for additional Alzheimer's research.
Right. It's funny. People don't realize it until you now have a family member who has Alzheimer's. I mean, it's just a word right now.
It's an epidemic.
Years ago when I first started, people hid their loved ones who had Alzheimer's. They didn't take them out. They didn't do anything with them. But there are wonderful ways that you can be with them, help them, not be embarrassed, and just give them the best life that you can.
Exactly. And it's, again, the effects of caring for a loved one is very devastating to family.
And hard.
As a matter of fact, 40% of all caregivers, unpaid caregivers, actually pass away before the person who has
Wow.
that needs care.
Now, that's quite a statistic.
Yeah,
It is because it's 24 hours a day.
right.
Yeah, I think there was a book I once read many years ago, the 36-hour caregiving. And that's what it was. They call it 36 hours because it's 24 hours is really even enough, even though there isn't 36 hours, but it seems like it. So you're doing a very good thing. You've hooked on. I like what you're doing. You're doing something for the community,
Right.
doing
Thank
something
you.
for yourself. No one ever knows what's going to happen. And then you're doing something financial, which everybody's scared to death about, aren't they? That's the biggest part.
Oh, everyone's more concerned with rate of return on their money and how to accumulate more money. And I believe they're missing the big picture, and that's protecting the moat, protecting their family, protecting their assets. Because again, 7 out of 10, 70% chance when you reach age 65 that you're going to need some form of long-term care, yet less than 15% of the population has any kind of coverage.
And it isn't just Alzheimer's. We've been dwelling on
It
that.
is not
but
only
No, I
Alzheimer's.
want everyone to understand. There are people who you can see them walking around with walkers, with wheelchairs. These people need 24-hour care. And who's going to take care of them? Unless you have a great deal of money. And even those people with a great deal of money, they're the ones who really do the insurance.
Well, it's very interesting. Say, a lot of times I run into somebody who has a lot of money, and they can't afford to self-insure. But I say to them, would you rather spend your $100,000 on care or move that $100,000 over here, right pocket to left pocket, and create $500,000 of tax-free benefits? It's just a smart business decision.
Yeah.
Even if you can afford Why would you want to pay dollar for dollar when you can pay pennies on the dollar to get tax-free long-term care benefits?
Right, and a lot of people don't want to wait. Let's say you do have to go to a nursing home. You want to be able to go to a nursing home that you, if that's why
Choice. Having
choice.
a choice.
And a lot of times with Medicaid, you don't have a choice of a lot of things. And I think that it's such a win-win for all, especially since you were talking about the difference between the old, the new, asset-based long-term care. There's a lot of stuff there that I have no idea about.
One other strategy that people are not aware of, because again, I said I look to find the money to be able to reposition.
Yes.
Well, you could even use qualified money, IRA money, 401k money, monies that are in a health savings account, an HSA. And there are strategies on how to use those dollars to fund long-term care. Because a lot of people have most of their money in IRAs and 401ks. So they think they can't afford it, but if you tap into that and do it properly, you can actually use those dollars to fund a long-term care plan.
You know, Gary, it's wonderful to talk to you and have you here on our radio show. I know you'll probably put this on your website so that you'll be able to, other people can go there. And you do have a website, I believe.
I do.
And I'm just going to tell everybody what that is. The website for Gary is it's called SWA.
It's swafinancial.com.
Right, swafinancial.com. swafinancial.com. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. Happy holidays.